Superman and Lois is here. Episode 1. We'll just call this one Superman and Lois because they always call the first episode pilot. There's a lot to go over here. Before I even get into the whole spiel, I love the first episode. I thought it was done very well, and I'm extremely interested in seeing what happens forward with all the character. That being said, I do have one gripe. I have one issue with the entire show, but I'll get to that at the end, and my complaint will probably be addressed at some point. So anyway, but before we can get into the adventures of Superman and Lois, we first have to go back to the crossover. We have to go back to Crisis, because again, in Crisis, in the beginning of Crisis, episode 1 of Crisis, Superman and Lois had just had their first baby. You know, his name was Johnny. They were on Argo City, and you know, Argo was about to be destroyed because of the red wave of antimatter. They put Johnny in a pod and they sent them to Earth. So now Crisis happens, everything's over and done with. Superman, the rest of the heroes, Oliver Queen sacrificed himself to reboot the universe. Oliver rebooted the universe, which brought Black Lightning, which brought Supergirl, which brought all the heroes together on one Earth specifically, and now everybody's together sharing one Earth. Superman included. At the end of Crisis for Superman, he was flying home, and then Lois called him, and then she was just like, Clark, you need to come home quick. There's something wrong with the boys. And then he was like, the boys? And even I said, the boys, because when this whole thing started, he had a baby. Now he has 2 kids. Come to find out, these are teenagers now. These are teenage kids. They're about to start high school. So two fraternal twins. You know, one has blonde hair, one has dark hair. One thing that they did with Superman and Lois was, because they've basically accelerated his storyline, because like again, Oliver Queen's sacrifice, it basically like rewrit Clark's storyline. Just how like, you know, John Diggle, where like he had a daughter, then he had a son. Now after Crisis, he got 2 kids. So now that they've rewritten his history, a lot of things have changed. Like a lot of circumstances of his life changed. And instead of giving us like 13 episodes of just taking us through, you know, each thing piece by piece by piece, because we already saw Man of Steel, they basically, in the beginning of the episode, they sped through his beginning history. They showed him when he landed as a baby. They showed him as a child, where he was taking paper airplanes and throwing them so hard he was putting holes into the house. They showed him meet Lois for the first time. They showed the 2 of them getting married. They showed the first time that he proposed to her, you know, when she got married. And that was interesting because in the Elseworlds crossover, Superman proposed. He's Superman. I can call him Superman or Clark. Superman proposed to Lois in the Fortress of Solitude when they were having a barbecue, because he took the coal, crushed it in the diamond, put the diamond on a ring, and then he gave her the ring. Here, now he proposed to her. They were like some ice cave or whatever, you know, and then he proposed to her. They kissed, and then like that, you know, they flew up into the sky, and like that was it. So that was one thing that changed already. Like the circumstances of their marriage, of how they got married, changed already. So so they're at the wedding. They show you General Lane, Lois's dad. It's not the same actor that they used on Supergirl. You know, well, he was a CBS actor anyway from Supergirl, so it's a new character now that's playing the General. I hope we get Lucy Lane on the show, because I thought she was very pretty. You know, she was supposed to be Lois Lane's like kid sister, so we'll see if she pops up as well. So now, you know, like they're doing the life thing. Superman, you know, and because of that, and the relationship with the General, like, it's very important, because on Supergirl, they made it abundantly clear to say that Clark, you know, James said this all the time. He said that because of how the government utilizes kryptonite, you know, and things like that with like the DEO, it was this whole thing that Clark won't work with the government. Clark refuses to work with the government. Superman won't work with the government because of how the government, you know, does with like kryptonite and stuff. But because he married the daughter of a government general, I guess the 2 of them made peace, because now he's working with the government. So Lois's dad, General Lane, him and Superman are basically like, you know, like they're basically Jim Gordon and Batman. You know, like the General knocks it up, Superman shows up and he knocks it down. There was a situation where there was a nuclear power plant that was going into critical mass. The General called in soups. Superman swooped in typical Superman style. He froze an entire lake, lifted a huge chunk of frozen ice, dropped it into the cooling system, cooled down the nuclear reactor, and saved the day. The General told him that this was actually not the first incident, and there was a string of attacks that someone is targeting when it comes to like nuclear power plants. But Superman was just like, all right, well, keep me posted, and then we'll go handle some business. So he goes home now, like him, Lois, the kids, they all live in Metropolis. And I like the fact that they showed us Superman first. They showed us Superman being heroic, because Superman and Super Dad are two completely different people. And Superman is not a good father. Well, particularly to like one kid, because he has one son, like his blonde son. He's like he's a 5-star athlete. He was a freshman who was quarterback of like the varsity football team. They showed footage of this kid. When he was a child, he took a football, threw it at a piece of rope that was tied up to a tire. He broke the rope, like he threw the football so hard, like it snapped the rope and broke the tire. So Lois and Clark, they think he has powers, because there was always like this unspoken thing where one or both of them could possibly have power. So they were always on the lookout for that. But because like the star athlete's son, his name was Johnny, his name was, Jonathan, because Jonathan was like a super athlete, they were just like, well, shit, he might be the one he might actually have power. They didn't think the other kid had power. The other kid's name was Jordan. They didn't think Jordan had power because Jordan grew up, he like kind of emo. He was very angry as a child. He had emotional problems, and he was diagnosed, with I forget the term they said for it. So, but he was diagnosed with like, with like an emotional, like with an emotional and a mental illness. So because of that, they were just like, well, he obviously doesn't have power. And he kind of like pushes away from his dad, because he sees that Clark is really into the fact that, Jonathan is an athlete, and Jonathan's like popular and he's the cool kid. So he saw himself as like, oh, like that's dad's favorite son. So he pushes back against his father. Like Jonathan always gives his dad a hard time. They were supposed to go to counseling together. Like Clark missed it because, he was doing his Superman thing. And that's another thing, like, because he's Superman, he doesn't tell his kids that he's Superman. So his kids don't know that he's Superman. So, he's always coming up with excuses of why he can't be around. Jonathan obviously doesn't have a problem with it, but Jordan takes that personal, and he always resents his dad because his dad's never there. So it's first day of school. Kids go off to school. Lois is talking to Clark, and she's like, listen, maybe you should actually tell them that you're Superman. And he's like, no, because he was just like, first of all, if both of them have powers, I mean, it's stupid, like, for Superman, for Clark to be like, I don't want to tell them, it was kind of stupid, because if they do have powers, you're going to have to address it anyway, so you might as well just say something now. But he was very adamant about not telling them, but his biggest fear, it wasn't even so much, like, telling them. His biggest fear was he was afraid that one of them would have power and the other one wouldn't. More specifically, Jonathan. He was afraid that, because of Jonathan's athletic ability, Clark already thinks he's the one with the powers. So Clark's whole thing was, if Jordan finds out that Jonathan has power and he doesn't, like, Jordan already feels like the outcast of the family because of his mental issues. So finding out that his brother has superpowers and he doesn't, that's going to like destroy the kid even further. And like Clark specifically said, he's already pushed far away from me enough. I don't want to lose him. So him and Lois, they argue about it. They go back and forth. But, adamantly, Superman was like, no, like, we're not going to, like, we're not going to tell him. We're not going to tell them, that I'm Superman. The two of them go to work, because, again, they both work at the Daily Planet. When they get to work, they find out that people are being fired and people are being laid off. Lois asks the question, like, why is everybody being fired? And then they find out that Morgan Edge I guess he bought the Daily Planet, and now he's laying people off for whatever reason. Sadly enough and crazy enough, they fired Clark Kent. So now Clark ain't got no job. Like, Clark is fired. He ain't got no job. And Lois still kept her job, which makes sense because Lois Lane's the reporter. So they conveniently got Clark out of the Daily Planet. So, so now they're talking about, like, Lois was just like, well, shit, now that you ain't got no job, you're going to have to come up with excuses now to the boys for why you're never around. Because now when you disappear, you're not going to have the reporter excuse. And he's just like, yo, I already told you, we ain't telling them that I'm Superman. So, so then unfortunately, when that happened, he got a call from a doctor. And we found out that his mother had passed away. Like, Martha, is gone in the CW Arrowverse, which is sad. Superman, like, he goes to see his mom, and, they have a funeral. he's mourning the loss. He did tell Lois that when, like, because once he heard the news that his mom had a stroke and she had passed away, that he flew from Metropolis to Smallville in zero point 0.2 seconds. So, but he said that he did say that when he was flying to Smallville to go see his mom was talking to him because his mom knows he has the super hearing. So she was basically speaking, and he heard what she was saying as he was flying over to the house. And she was basically telling him, to be there for your kids, be there for your family, be present more, be in Smallville per se. So the whole family goes down to have to go have the funeral again, which was very sad. There was a funny moment where Jordan was playing Mortal Kombat, and he was playing Mortal Kombat versus DC, and it was Raiden versus Superman, and then Clark came in and he was like, oh, you're real good at being Superman, and then he was just like, man, Superman's lame, I'm Raiden. And I thought that was actually very funny. So now, so they're at the farm. We get a Lana Lane appearance, like old school Lana Lane. I thought Lana Lane was supposed to be like this huge fashion designer, or like this very popular, like, sexy, like gorgeous, like gorgeous, like model type woman. But come to find out, she's just a regular girl next door, and she works at the bank. Her husband is a total douche. He's like the chief of the fire department, and they have 2 daughters. They have a teenage daughter, and then they have like a younger daughter. The boys, they know the daughter, so the 3 of them have like this little thing going on. The Lang family is getting the Kents caught up with everything that's happening in Smallville. And then we find out that Morgan Edge, not only did Morgan Edge buy the Daily Planet, but he's also buying out property and buying out farms in Smallville. And Lois is immediately like, hell no, because she doesn't trust Morgan Edge at all. And she wants to know what a rich tycoon like Morgan Edge, like, what does he want with a small town like Smallville? So now Lois is already in like reporter mode because she already don't trust homeboy from jump, so, but then Lana had told Clark, she was like, listen, I need you to come by the bank tomorrow because there's some business that needs to be handled when it comes to like, your mom's estate. So she told him that her mom basically like took out a loan, not for herself, but she mortgaged her house to help another family pay for their farm. And so Martha had to pay that back, because Martha was basically, she was the superwoman of Smallville. She was always helping people, always saving people. So Lana told Clark, she was like, listen, because the house belongs to you now, you can either pay back the loan and it's all gravy, or you can sell us the Kent farm. That's when Lois was just like, aren't you aware that Morgan Edge is like the person that you work for that's trying to buy up all this stuff? And she said she didn't know that. She said she didn't realize that Morgan Edge was actually like behind this whole thing. But again, like they thought that was fishy, but Lois is working that angle, so she gonna figure that whole thing out. The boys, they end up going into the barn because they were trying to find where the Wi-Fi was, and the Wi-Fi was actually in the barn, which was weird. Jordan ends up climbing a ladder to go turn on, like the Wi-Fi. He falls off the ladder, lands on his ass. Jonathan, and then there were like some huge metal pipes that were on top that were about to fall on him. Jonathan runs over to try to save Jordan. The pipes fall on both of them. Superman shows up to dig his kids out of the rubble. Come to find out, both kids are fine. Nobody's hurt. So now the kids are freaking out. Everybody freaking out. Jordan's a lot smarter than they're giving him credit for, because he was the one that was just like, okay, every time we come to Smallville, Dad never wants us to go in the barn. We go in the barn, something happens. We get pipes dropped on us. We're not hurt. We're not injured. Nothing's wrong. Nobody's saying anything. Dad's not even making a big deal out of it. So they go snooping around the barn or whatever. They find a hidden passageway under the barn. They go down the tunnel. They go all the way to the end of the tunnel. They find the spaceship that Clark was sent to Earth in. So now they're freaking out because they're just like, yo, why do you have an alien spaceship in the basement? They run up on Clark and Lois, and then at that point Clark is just like, all right, I gotta say something. So he's just like, look, he basically like, yo, I'm Superman. And then his kids was like, bullshit, because we've seen Superman. Superman is actually cool. There's no way you're Superman. He lifts the car, starts flying around, and now both kids are freaking out. And this is the part that lost me with Jordan, because Jordan was playing like this quiet, timid, like emo, like social anxiety. I think that's what it was. He had social anxiety. It was like, he's like this social anxiety, type person. He finds out his dad's Superman, and now his chest is all puffed out. He's all up in his dad's face, and he's just like, no, you've been lying to me, and you're a bad father. And I'm just like, well, damn. Haven't we turned the corner, like very quickly? So he gets mad and he walks away. Lana Lang's daughter, she invited the boys to, because in small towns, they have like parties down by the fire, like down in the woods by the fire or down by the beach or whatever. So they're doing the small town like teenage party thing. They're at the party. Jordan is talking to Lana's daughter. The two of them shared a moment because she said that during the funeral she saw that he was taking medication pills, and then she said that she takes medication too because she had an incident where she OD'd on like her mom's pills like back in the day, and then they put her in therapy and everything and put her on depressants. So the two of them kind of had like a shared connection moment. Jordan totally misread the situation and he kissed her. When he kissed her, she was just like, oh, what are you doing? I have a boyfriend. And he was like, oh, snap. Her boyfriend came out of nowhere. It was some huge black dude. And he started beating up Jordan. And then Jonathan shows up to protect his brother. Jonathan gets into a fight. So Jonathan and Jordan, now they're getting beat up by all the Smallville kids. And while they're getting their ass beat, Jonathan emotionally spazzed out. Laser beams came out of his eyes. He shot the campfire and blew up the entire party. That was kind of cool. And that was the big reveal that it's the emo kid that has, the superpowers, not the star athlete child. General Lang ends up coming to the Kent farm because he's just like, hey, Superman, there's another situation where, somebody's attacking a power plant. We need you to come down here and help us out. Lois wasn't having it because Lois was just like, look, his mom just died. There are people here. Our boys, are emotionally disturbed. This isn't the time for him to be Superman. We need him to be Clark Kent. And then the general was just like, first of all, woman, he was like, he said you may have fell in love with Clark Kent, but you married Superman, and Superman does not get to have a life. And you need to understand this, going forward, because the world needs Superman and Superman needs to be there to save the people. But Superman was just like, all right, yeah, but this time he was like, I'm not going to do it. He's like, I'm going to stay with the family. And then the general gets mad and, he gets all upset and then like he leaves. So now Lois and Clark are having the conversation. They're talking about, what they're going to do as far as like the farm situation and then the whole thing with the Kent farm. Another power plant ends up being attacked, and then this time Lois was just like, all right, go do what you gotta do, because he needed something to take his mind off everything that was happening anyway. So she was just like, all right, just go do what you do. So he flies down to the power plant. And then there's an evildoer, a villain, if you will, who's at the power plant, and he's just like, oh, he told him that he was purposely attacking multiple power plants on purpose because the power plants are all lined with lead. This way Superman couldn't see him because he wanted to observe Superman while he was in action, so he can study his movements, study his patterns, study his thought process, how to fight him. So then the guy comes out of nowhere. He's wearing this big old like Lex Luthor looking type suit, and then him and Superman get into a fight. They're fighting all over the city. While the two of them are fighting, the villain, he's saying things to him like, oh, you thought you were the only person, that was, that's planet was destroyed or his life was ruined, and you came to Earth trying to blend in with the people, and I didn't have that opportunity. And he's just like, like, you think you're one of them, I'll show you differently, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm kind of like, okay, so he's an alien. So basically like this dude is an alien. So he's an alien from a different planet, and apparently he got beef with Superman. Lois even said at one point, she was just like, let me guess, there's a superpower being out there who hates and wants to kill Superman. She was just like, get in line, take a number. So during the fight, they ended up fighting in outer space because this Superman can fly in outer space, or at least like in the upper atmosphere. They're flying in the upper atmosphere. The villain takes out a kryptonite knife, stabs Superman in the chest, and like drops him to the ground. So it was at that moment while Superman was flying to the ground, he was about to crash into the floor, Lois had got the call that, Jonathan just blew up the campfire. So she was talking to Clark because, again, the whole thing now is because of the super hearing, people can talk to him and he can hear them. So she's talking to Clark, and then Clark, her voice was enough to wake him up out of his trance. He pulls the kryptonite out of his chest, throws it away, and then stops himself, from hitting the ground. So now this whole thing about this person who just whooped his ass is out there, and he needs to figure out what they're going to do about that, but that's a problem for later because he got to help his kids. He flies back to Smallville. He goes to the campfire. He sees Johnny. He's just like, hey, is everything okay? Is it all good? And he was just like, I'm fine, but Jonathan's not. He said, but Jordan's not okay. He looks over at Jordan, sees Jordan like hysterically crying, and now he realizes that Jordan's the one who actually has the superpowers. So the Kent family, they have a conversation about it the next day, and then, Superman talked to his son, and he was just like, listen, he's like, I know I haven't always always been there for you, but now you know why at least. And now that you have power, I'm gonna be there for you as best I can to help you through it. So hopefully now Jordan's gonna come around a little bit. Lana Lang's daughter, she was just like, oh, how come you guys aren't hurt or injured or whatever, this, that, the third. And he's just like, my business. So she's gonna be a part of the mix. Like, she's gonna be a part of the mix. They ended up telling Lana, and then that's when Lois and Clark had the conversation. He was just like, listen, I think my mom was trying to tell me that maybe we should move to Smallville because it'll be better for our family and better for the kids. And then Lois was just like, all right, cool, I agree. She didn't agree because she really thinks that them living there is a good idea. She did that to keep her eye on the Morgan Edge situation with the townspeople and the Smallville people. That's the only reason why Lois said yes. So they tell the kids seem like they're okay with it, and now the entire Kent family, they're going to live on the farm. Lois is still going to be a reporter, and Clark and the boys are basically going to be the farmers, and they're going to rebuild the farm, and his job is going to be like Superman by night, and then by day they're going to become like the farmers, and they're going to rebuild the farm. And and then in the end, the villain who attacked Superman throughout the entire episode, he shows up at like some secret government facility, and then you never see his face. He takes his helmet off, and then somebody called him Captain Luthor. So now I'm kind of confused because the way the guy was talking to Superman was though he was alien, but they called him Captain Luthor. So maybe this is like a clone or something that Luthor created. I need Arrowverse Lex Luthor to be on this show. And now we'll get into the one thing about the show that bothered me. As I said, because it was a good episode. It was definitely a good episode. The intrigue is there, and I definitely want to know what's going on. The one thing that bothered me about the episode, when they showed Superman and Lois getting married, Kara wasn't there. James Olsen wasn't there. When Jonathan Kent Sr. passed away, nobody was there. Nobody, like, Kara wasn't at the funeral. When Martha died, when they were at Martha's funeral, Kara wasn't there. Jimmy wasn't there. Like, when the kids find out that Superman, like their dad is Superman, somebody should have been like, wait, so if you're Superman, does that mean we're also related to Supergirl? Or are you trying to tell me that Aunt Kara this whole time is Supergirl? I was like, where were those questions? Like, none of those things came up. When the general needed Superman's help to go stop the guy at the nuclear plant, and Lois was just like, no, he's not going because he needs to be here for his family. I was waiting for Clark to at least say, well, Lois has a point, I need to be here for the family. Why don't you call Kara? Maybe Kara could go and fill in for me in the meantime, because she was doing it on Supergirl. Like, on Supergirl, there was at least 3 or 4 times where she ended up standing in for Superman, because Superman had to do something off world, and Kara was the fill-in. So I'm like, why are we not using Kara now? Why are we not bringing up Kara now? I get it. I get that Melissa Benoist she was probably pregnant at the time when Superman was going down. I understand there was COVID, but at the very least, I don't understand why her name never got brought up. And that just really bothered me. The fact that Kara and James never gets brought up really, like, it was just like something that just kept sticking me in the side, like the whole time. Like, I was just like, y'all gonna have to address this at some point, and then the whole thing about Jordan having superpowers and Jonathan doesn't have superpowers, that's flat out bullshit. Later on, it may be at a small scale, but I feel like at some point the other kid is going to get some sort of power, maybe not full-blown Superman powers, but he might at least get super strength, because they say, and they're just like, oh, so you're the one with the powers and Jonathan's the one that's just normal. Bullshit. The kid took a football and threw it so hard it snapped a rope in two. The kid has some sort of power. Like I said, it just hasn't manifested yet. But like I said, I feel like we'll find out that we're gonna manifest that too. And Lex Luthor, like, you got Lena Luthor, you got Lex Luthor. Well, maybe not Lena, because Lena's not really a villain per se. But somebody need to like Lex Luthor, Kara, and James Olsen. I need to see all 3 of them either be shown or name dropped before this first season comes to an end. Otherwise, I'm going to have a huge problem with that. But other than that, it was a good show. So, thank you for tuning in. So let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought of Superman and or Lois. Where do you think the storylines are going to go? Like the storyline with Superman fighting this Captain Luthor person. Who the hell is Captain Luthor? I might have to research that to see if it's a comic book character. But then again, I don't want to be spoiled, so I got to think about that one. Let me know what you think about Lois investigating Morgan Edge and where the whole Morgan Edge plot is, and where do you think the kids go? You know, because again, like the emo kid got the powers now, the Lana girl is somewhere in the mix, and how long do you think before the other kid ends up with some sort of power as well? Thank you for tuning in as always. Check me out on social media. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hit the like button. Definitely give this video a like. Hit the notification bell so you know when other videos pop up, because again, we're doing Black Lightning, we're doing WandaVision, we're doing Batwoman, The Flash starts next week. You know, check me out on the Tacos and Geek podcast with Sean, Justin, and Gotham Geek Girl Nadia. Link always in the description for that. Again, check me out on other social media. Let's keep the superhero train going. So for the first episode, we're done. And until episode 2, with Superman and Lois, take care, guys. And I'm out this bitch.